There is a man in Scotland named Alan Ross who has been following his national team to away matches for years, the kind of supporter who checks his calendar in August and starts planning in October, who books the cheap flights months ahead, who has watched Scotland qualify for this World Cup and thought, finally a summer tournament, North America, I'm going. And then he tried to buy a ticket. He joined the queue on FIFA's official platform. He waited. He watched the prices move in real time while he was waiting. The seat he had budgeted for was no longer at the price he'd been quoted when he joined the queue. By the time his slot arrived, he was looking at a number he had not planned for. He tried again at the next sales window. The same thing happened. And then he said something that thousands of supporters across the world have said in the past 6 months, in different languages to different people, but with exactly the same meaning. I'm not going to chase anymore. That sentence, from one man in Scotland who has been following his team his entire adult life, tells you more about where the 2026 World Cup price problem has arrived than any legal filing or consumer complaint or press release. It tells you that the people who care most about football are the ones being pushed furthest from it. And it tells you that the problem is not getting better. 9 days from the opening match, the problem is getting worse. Let's understand how we got here. The 2026 World Cup introduced dynamic pricing for the first time in the tournament's history. Dynamic pricing, borrowed from the airline and hotel industries, means that ticket prices adjust in real time based on demand. FIFA's argument was that this reflects the market, that extraordinary demand justifies extraordinary prices, that 150 million ticket requests had been received in the first weeks of sales, and the pricing simply reflects that gap between supply and demand. The principle, on its own terms, is not unreasonable. Demand genuinely is extraordinary. This is the largest World Cup ever staged, 48 nations, 104 matches across 3 countries. Supply is finite. The market, in a technical sense, is speaking. But here is what dynamic pricing looks like in practice for a working person who has been saving up to attend a match. You log on to FIFA's platform on a Tuesday morning. You see a Category 3 ticket, upper tier, decent view, the kind of seat ordinary fans fill at every major tournament, listed at a price you can manage. You join the queue, you wait, 40 minutes. By the time your slot opens, that Category 3 seat is 30% more expensive than it was when you joined the queue. You decide to wait for the next window. The price is higher still. You try a third time, higher. You've spent 3 mornings of your working life queuing for a seat that keeps moving away from you, and you give up. That is not a hypothetical. That is the documented experience of thousands of supporters, described in fan surveys, in media interviews, and in the formal complaint documents that are now sitting on desks at the European Commission in Brussels and the Office of the New Jersey Attorney General. Let's talk about the legal picture first, because in the past 2 weeks, this story has moved from fan frustration to formal investigation. The Attorneys General of New York and New Jersey issued subpoenas to FIFA at the end of last week, legal documents with the full force of American law behind them, demanding FIFA hand over its internal records on how it set prices, how it structured the seat categories, and how 8 matches at the stadium in New Jersey, including the final on the 19th of July, were managed from a ticketing perspective. A third Attorney General, from California, has separately requested information to assess whether state law may have been violated during the sales process. 3 American states, formal subpoenas, 9 days from kickoff. The Attorney General of New Jersey put it plainly. Being honest about ticket sales is not complicated, but FIFA has turned buying a ticket to the World Cup into a gauntlet of confusion, fake scarcity, and impossibly high prices, all at the expense of fans and working people.
That language, fake scarcity, is specific and deliberate. It refers to something the Attorneys General have identified in the way FIFA structured its sales windows and category systems, something that goes beyond the basic principle of dynamic pricing and into the territory of whether fans were actively misled about what they were buying. Here is what the seat category issue actually involves. When FIFA first released tickets, it divided stadiums into 4 zones, Category 1 through Category 4, with Category 1 being the premium end. Fans purchased in good faith based on that structure. They committed money on the understanding that a Category 1 purchase meant Category 1 seating. Then FIFA introduced a new tier, front category tickets. Essentially, the best seats within each existing category were created and priced at a significant premium above the original categories, which meant that fans who had purchased Category 1 tickets found themselves looking at a new tier above them. Seats they had paid for as premium were now being described as less desirable than a new tier that hadn't existed when they bought. And the better seats within the same general zone were being sold again at a higher price. The attorneys general put it this way: customers who purchased seats in the original zones said they were excluded from those seats and instead assigned less desirable positions, including seats far from the field or behind the goals, while the more desirable locations within their purchased zone were offered as upgrades at additional cost. That is the allegation. FIFA has not commented publicly on the investigation. Its previous position, when asked about pricing generally, was that its strategy spans a broad range of price points reflecting market demand for each match. But that answer doesn't address the category switching. It doesn't address whether fans knew at the time of purchase that a new premium tier would subsequently appear above what they had bought. Now let's put the numbers down, because sometimes the most honest thing you can do is simply state what the prices are and let people feel them. A ticket to the World Cup final at the stadium in New Jersey was originally priced at between $380 and $32,970, depending on category. Through FIFA's own official resale platform, a platform FIFA operates directly and from which it takes a 15% fee on both the sale and the purchase, a Category 3 seat for the final was listed at over $140,000. The cheapest available ticket on the resale site was nearly $10,000. The cheapest ticket to the 2022 World Cup final in Qatar, in the equivalent category, was roughly $600. Attending every match from the group stage through to the final, 8 matches, costs a minimum of £5,200 at the lowest pricing tier through official supported channels, at mid-range around $8,500, at premium over $12,000. For the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, the equivalent journey through 7 matches cost between £1,466 and £3,914, from under £4,000 to over £12,000 in 4 years. An economics professor at the College of the Holy Cross in the United States, when asked to assess the long-term consequences of this pricing direction, said something that has been widely shared since it was published. "It's a real concern," he said, "that you might have a world where stadiums, instead of being full of vibrant and excited fans, are instead full of rich people on their phones taking selfies for their influencer accounts."
That is not a campaigning slogan. That is an academic economist describing a structural risk to the commercial viability of the sport's most important event. When the authentic fans who create the atmosphere are priced out and replaced by wealthy spectators who are there for the experience rather than the football, the thing that makes a World Cup worth watching starts to erode. The noise, the color, the genuine emotion in the stands, the sense that every person in the stadium has something real at stake. A World Cup without that is still a sporting event, but it is not quite the same thing. The formal complaint filed by fan organizations with the European Commission runs to 18 pages. It uses specific legal language to describe what it alleges FIFA has done. Bait advertising, referring to FIFA's original claim that group stage tickets started at $60, which turned out to be a price available in such limited numbers that it was exhausted before general sale began. Dynamic pricing, pressure selling tactics, lack of transparency about seat locations and refund policies. One representative from the consumer rights side of that complaint put it this way: "Dynamic pricing turns fans' loyalty into a bidding war, inflates costs without added value, and locks out many supporters." FIFA released a limited batch of £45 tickets in December, following the initial wave of criticism.
The fan organizations noted that these tickets were, in practice, gone before the general sale window opened. The optics of their existence was more significant than their actual impact. It allowed FIFA to say, "We have affordable tickets," without those tickets being accessible in any meaningful scale to the people who needed them. Infantino's defense across several public appearances has rested on two arguments. First, the demand is real. 150 million requests for tickets in the first weeks of sale. The tournament is genuinely wanted by more people than it can accommodate. Second, FIFA's revenues fund football development globally. Without the financial model that this tournament sustains, the infrastructure for football in 150 countries, the coaching programs, the youth academies, the smaller federation support systems would not exist. These are not false claims. The demand is real. The investment in global football development is real. But here is the counter-argument that the investigations, the complaints, and the fans who gave up on their tickets are making collectively. Demand does not justify any price. The fact that 150 million people want tickets does not mean that moving the seat categories after purchase is acceptable. It does not mean that a working person in Edinburgh should face a dynamic pricing algorithm every time they try to buy a ticket at the price they budgeted. It does not mean that the organization can operate an official resale platform that takes 15% from both sides of a transaction where a $300 ticket has been resold for $140,000. The revenue argument is real. But there is a version of this tournament's finances where FIFA generates extraordinary revenue and also does not deceive fans about where they're going to be sitting. Those two things are not in conflict with each other. One is a revenue strategy, the other is basic honesty with the people who love the game. And the people who love the game are not abstract. They are Alan Ross in Scotland, who gave up on chasing tickets. They are the fan in New Jersey who told a journalist he was willing to pay inflated prices, but felt FIFA was simply taking advantage. They are the thousands of supporters across Europe and North America and South America who went through FIFA's queuing system 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and came away without a ticket they could afford. 9 days from now, the matches begin. The football will be extraordinary. The tournament will produce its moments, its upsets, its heroes, its nights that people remember for decades. But somewhere in the record of this tournament, along with the goals and the penalty shootouts and the atmospheres in the great stadiums, there will also be a record of what it cost to be there, of who could and who couldn't, of the 3 American attorneys general who were still issuing subpoenas a week before kickoff, of the 18-page complaint sitting in Brussels asking the European Commission to intervene in the pricing of a football tournament. That record matters, not because it diminishes what the football will be, but because the conversation it forces about who football is for and who gets to be in the room when it happens is a conversation that will shape the next World Cup and the one after that, and the direction of the game for a generation. Alan Ross isn't going to chase anymore. Someone at FIFA should be thinking hard about what that means.